For the purpose of those who do not have an access to Windows Server license and cannot get Active Directory set up, we will go through an installation of Apache Directory Server that is going to be a decent substitute for what we want to do. To get going, we'll navigate to Basic User Guide, section 1.3, Installer and Start in a Server. And the first point says we need to have Oracle, preferably version of Java 7 installed. So over to Oracle we go. Maybe it does work with 8, I haven't tried it, but the docs say 7. So we're looking for specifically development kit. We will install this on a CentOS Linux machine. So find Linux x64 RPM version. Then we get a typical Western apology that they don't mean. Look at this. Sorry, you must accept. How can I possibly be sorry about that? So over to accept and poke to download. Very good. I am not cutting that out. I did. Look at that. I'm right now on Windows. I've been with Linux for 7 years, but a couple months ago I switched to Linux desktop. A long side story about that, so you may see some window things. Putting it in here. Make a note of this. And let's grab ApacheDS. Down at the bottom we have download page for Linux version. We will go for binary installer. Pick the 64-bit version. And we're going to need Studio one time as well. Yes, I have to download Windows. Not very happy about that, but some things happened a few months ago where I had to abandon my 7-year-old Linux desktop, sadly. So download is going right along. I already got a ready-to-go CentOS virtual machine. I need to transfer the downloads over to it. I will use SCP for that. So we're SCP-ing will start as the JDK over to here. This will be the name of the secondary LDAP server besides like the directory version. That's where we're going to put it for now. Transfer. And I'm doing it this way over SCP. Well, one, because Oracle has a license agreement, and then it's just kind of scary to download things to wget sometimes. So I dump it over to my workstation, and then I transfer them over to the server. And I do that with many other products as well. Next thing we need is ApacheDS itself. That's getting copied over. Now we can SSH back in. We see that transfer has successfully completed. So we of course start with no Java installed. Now we need to put it in with RPM UVH and then name of the package. Let's get it installed. I should have switched the language, but oh well. Nothing overly interesting. Extracting, and we should have Java available in path. Yes, there we go. Let's see how the ApacheDS installer gonna treat us. Probably complain that it's not executable. Ah, it is, okay. Alrighty, we've got a license agreement to which we will gracefully agree. Apparently I must press the enter key for it to go all the way down. There's no page down. Okay, yes, I shall agree. You all are witnesses that I have agreed to the license. Where shall I install it? That sounds like a good location. Where do you want to install the instance? Why does everything have to go into var lib by default? That is not my favorite place to put server components. I'm going to exit out of here, and I will make my favorite directory for server data file components, which is under srv, and name of the service. That's where we have the actual data for the service going to go. And another tip, this is useful to have under a separate hard drive altogether. Make it a separate physical device, so the I/O operations are independent. And it doesn't interfere with operating system components that var lib is full of, so it's all around a much better place to be. Go back and re-agree to the license agreement. I wonder if that's legally allowed. Agree and then agree some more. Where do we want to install them? In the directory we just created. I can never actually sometimes remember exactly how I typed them. I think that was it. Do you want the default instance? What name do you want for the default instance? Default sounds good. It's still back in the initd days apparently, not supporting systemd. I hope it's gonna work. Which user do you want to run a server? The user will be created. ApacheDS will be created. That's very good. And a group, ApacheDS, is also very good. We definitely want every service that we ever have in its own user. And it's been installed successfully. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of services that do not come from the repository, because now this also means I have to manually remember occasionally to check whether ApacheDS has any updates. So if you want to do this full time, probably recommend looking at what your repository has to offer. Actually, I started the tutorial in using FreeIPA. It's another full-featured directory server with DNS and authentication and LDAP and Kerberos. But I spent 3 days recording a video, and I had to scrap all of it because I did not realize it doesn't support organizational units. It's like, how can an LDAP server possibly not support organizational unit? But it is based on 389 directory server. So if you don't want to fiddle with manual package management, you can use this project here. It's also a pretty decent directory server, but it is more of a hassle to set up, and as a developer, at this point I don't care so much about the details of installations. I just want to get something done quickly, but something for you to consider. Now sadly this is not systemd compatible yet. It is still in the initd days. So it puts the runner scripts out into init.d. So it installs this ApacheDS 200m23 default. That is the service that needs to be started. So ApacheDS 200m23 default start. So with the installation complete, let's see what the website of knowledge suggests we do next. Back to the main page, yes, user guide, basic configuration tasks, changing the server port for LDAP. This is an interesting one because it's not really designed to run as a service apparently, so by default it does not put it on standard ports, but on the higher ports that any user is allowed to run. We can confirm this, or that it's running in general, by typing in ss and list. And sure enough, 10.636 and 10.389 are the prefixed versions of the regular 389 and 636 that the typical LDAP server runs on. So we will make a point that we need to do this once we connect to it. Now, the Directory Studio by now would have finished downloading. It's just a zip file, so extract it. It's based on Eclipse. Open it up. And here's our blank new project. We will say new LDAP browser and LDAP connection. Call it ZF tutorial. Hostname is going to be ApacheDS. Then my subdomain followed by my name. You will type in the name of your computer or your name of your virtual machine, whatever you do. The prefix that we need to add to the port is that 10, since this is what the ApacheDS has decided to run on, 1039 instead of just 39. No encryption right now. The provider will be that client. That's all fine. Bind the end user. By default, we are given a certain set of defaults. So back over to the started guide, we have changed admin password page, which tells us that we get a UID admin and OU system. That'll be our user. And the password, a secret password. And I'm just showing you this to you so you know where to look this stuff up. Check it, and this is going to fail. And I know why this is going to fail, because there is one extra step we haven't done. And that's the firewall rules. Back over to the server we go. Let's just check that that's indeed the case. We'll do systemctl status firewall d.service. Indeed, the firewall is running. Yep, that comes in by default with a blank CentOS installation. So we need to add these two ports for starters, and then we will change them to the actual ports without the prefix, but that needs to be done first. So firewall cmd. First of all, actually, we need to check what zone do we need to add it to. So first we check what zone. The zone is public, so that's fine. That's where we're going to put it. So firewall cmd zone public, and you may actually have more than one zone. This is going to be a permanent change, because with firewall cmd you actually have an option to make a trial change, and then the next time you restart it, they don't get committed. But with permanent, these changes are actually going to stick. So add port is going to be 10.636 of type TCP, and it's going to be another one 10.389 of type TCP. Once they have successfully been created, we can apply them with the reload rule. So once we reload them, we are good, and we can actually see that they have been created with list all. There we go, we got them in there. So that might make this slightly more happier. There we go, nice and quick authentication is successful. Finish that off. And we got a nice connection ready to go with a pretty lame default namespace, too lame even for tutorial. So let's continue working through the rest of the checklist. A port number change cannot really be done the way it's listed in the manual, because we're on a Linux, we're not really allowed to take ownership of ports below 1024. So it's a bit more difficult to do, and I will leave it as an optional step last. We will change the password for administrator instead. This thing is saying it leaves underneath OU system, UID admin. We got the password. Pick a new password. Let's say ZF tutorial. Make it SHA 256. And with a new password set, would be appropriate to go to the properties and make sure that password has been updated. We recheck authentication and it is still successful. For partitioning, to designate where our application will store its data, we will right-click on the tutorial with Open Configuration, Partitions tab. ID will be tutorial. Suffix will consist of 3 sections, each one being a DC, a domain component. First one is a DS, second one is my domain name, and third one the root of my domain name. So this is equivalent to saying ds, or directory server, .alextechadventures.com. So in LDAP terms, every piece of the domain name is actually called the domain component. We will also delete examples so it doesn't interfere with us. And there is a bug in the Directory Studio that supposedly got resolved in the nightly version, but they haven't had a release since January of 2016. So when you save, you may get a pop-up error. It may have actually saved. Either way, we're going to have to close the connection and restart the service. Once the service has been restarted, we'll have to go back to the editor and reconnect twice. And we see that our section and the partition has been added. With this, we now have an open source license-free way of following my tutorials on LDAP authentication. I will still use my Active Directory server as the basis setup, but we will work through the differences as best as we can to make the application work on both.